Arsenal have now lodged a formal bid for Noni Madueke, which is worth up to £50 million inclusive of add-ons. Now, I think a bid had been anticipated over the past few days. Once that verbal agreement was reached with Madueke over a 5-year contract. But I have to say, I'm very surprised that Arsenal have gone as high as £50 million with their opening bid. Obviously, we do expect part of that figure to be made up of add-ons. But it just does not make sense to me. I think, um, for an opening bid, usually there's an acceptance that opening bids are never really accepted. And it's very rare that the first official offer results in an agreement. So for Arsenal to go in that high at £50 million for Madueke, I find that quite surprising. I mean, it's a good position for Chelsea in terms from a selling perspective, because they can hopefully now, for them, negotiate upwards of that figure. But I think for Arsenal to put that kind of money on the table with their first approach is a dangerous game to be playing, really, particularly given that there's still other attacking positions in their squad that they still would like to fulfil before the end of the window. At this moment in time, I think this deal does look like it's fairly likely to happen. The negotiations are kind of, it brings back memories of the Mason Mount deal with Manchester United. It took a little bit of time to get over the line, but usually when this level of money is put on the table between two direct rivals, it leads to a positive agreement in the end. But I don't think £50 million is a million miles away from what Chelsea are probably hoping to get for Madueke. So, real surprise, really, to see that Arsenal have gone that high, as I mentioned, with their opening proposal, particularly given that the Viktor Gyokeres saga is still ongoing. Obviously, Sporting still looking for an extra €5 million in terms of a fixed fee. That does look like a package that could potentially reach £70 million. But for me, Arsenal's priority should really be that striker position. It's a problem area that they've needed to sort and resolve for several years now. So to be going for a backup winger in Madueke for that kind of fee, I mean, it's the kind of signing that we probably will have to wait until the end of the window to truly judge, because Arsenal still have room for further recruits, and we do expect them to do further business. But as I said, it's a real surprise, really, that the Madueke deal seems to be such a burning priority, particularly given that agreement with Sporting, although at time of recording hasn't been reached, and it could be reached at any time, really, in the forthcoming hours and days, hasn't been struck with Sporting. So, as I said, real surprise at that. I think the Gyokeres deal should really be a priority. Whether Arsenal are waiting for Friday, when Gyokeres is technically due to report for Sporting training, to maybe strengthen their position and get Sporting to crack and accept what they've currently put on the table, remains to be seen. Obviously, Gyokeres is determined to get that move to Arsenal. And it does look like that is still going to happen. It's just a case of the final details. Sporting seem to have slightly reduced their demands. The suggestions were the president was going to hold out for a notable fee. And I think €80 million is still a great deal, really, from a Sporting perspective, given that Gyokeres' release clause was sat at €100 million, which was about 84 to 85 million pounds. £70 million is a good deal for all parties, particularly when you consider that Darwin Núñez actually moved to Liverpool in the summer of 2022 for a package worth up to €85 million, inclusive of add-ons. The initial fee was about £67 million, but Gyokeres' numbers are better than Núñez's in the Portuguese league. And of course, there's been a lot discussed about, whether those kind of numbers can translate to the Premier League. The numbers and the statisticians say that it's hard for those numbers to be reflected in the Premier League. The history has shown that it's a difficult league to adapt and transfer to. Obviously, Bruno Fernandes is the key success story, really, of recent years from the Portuguese league to the Premier League. But there is a slight concern, maybe, that Arsenal are slightly a little bit risking, going all out for Gyokeres, when actually it remains to be seen whether he can cut the mustard in the Premier League. But I do think for the sheer number of goals he scored, I think he's got 97 across 2 seasons in Lisbon, that, he's going to score goals. He might obviously not score the same amount as he did at Sporting, but it's clear that he will put numbers on the board, and I think ultimately it's a signing that Arsenal have to do. The interest in Eberechi Eze is ongoing. Rodrigo also is a player that's still a firm admiration. I think, it's clear that Madueke has now become a bit of a priority target really for Arsenal, which, as I stressed in Sunday's video, I do find particularly strange. I think Chelsea are in really good stead if they can get a big fee for Madueke, because it's clear they can probably use that money to maybe sign a potential upgrade. Obviously, Jamie Gittins has come in as a left winger, but Esteval Williams coming in as well, which I think is going to be a really exciting signing for Chelsea. He showed against Palmeiras, for Palmeiras against Chelsea at the Club World Cup, that he's a real super talent that has a huge ceiling, and I think Enzo Maresca will be confident in his coaching abilities, that he can really get something out of Esteval Williams straight away, really, which wasn't always expected to be the case, because of course he's such a young player. He's going to need a period of adaptation, but I think he's got the tools to go straight into Chelsea's first team when he arrives this summer. Just a bit of further news as well. Tottenham appear to be making inroads in their pursuit of Mohammed Kudus, who looks set to undergo a medical potentially tomorrow. Fee is believed to have been agreed with West Ham. I'm waiting on the final figures, but it's believed to be a package worth at least £55 million, potentially slightly more, including bonuses. But that is a great signing for Spurs, and it speaks volumes, really, that Kudus has been holding out for a move to Tottenham. He's had interest from a number of other Premier League clubs, from the Saudi Pro League as well. But I think that's a real statement signing for Spurs, of course, if they can get it over the line. Kudus was sent off last season in a game that I covered between Tottenham and West Ham. I think it finished 4-1 to Tottenham in the end. Really lost his head, but now he's going to be part of that Spurs squad, providing he can complete his medical and that the final details of the transfer are resolved. There's also interest in Yoane Wissa, a player Newcastle have also looked at. Brentford, of course, still in negotiations with Manchester United over Bryan Mbeumo. But at the same time, I think it looks clear like Wissa will probably look to consider his options. I think he's only got a couple of years remaining on his current Brentford deal. There were talks with Nottingham Forest and Wolves over the past 12 months, but I think, again, that'd be another great signing, a player that can come in and add goals and provide competition and cover for Dominic Solanke. We don't know quite yet what's going to happen with the future of Richarlison. And just another line on Spurs that I wanted to bring you. I understand Fenerbahce are showing interest in Yves Bissouma. So that's one to watch, and potentially we could see talks between the two clubs in the near future. I think Bissouma's only got a year left on his deal, so he's a player that Spurs will likely consider offers for. They'll also look to bring in a new defensive midfielder as well. But I think they would still command a decent fee for Bissouma, who's also attracted interest from Europe. So that is one to watch. But it appears Thomas Frank is closing in on his first signing, or official signing, as Tottenham boss, even though they have done some other business with Kota Takai coming in from Kawasaki front tail, and also Luka Vuskovic is also arriving following that deal was agreed, I think in 2023, for the young Croatian defender, who is expected to get a chance to impress in pre-season.